What's up, Exiles? Wanted to give a bit of a guide on the filters that I actually created for you all. The idea is if you kind of want the far more specific experience, let's say that you're like a monk and you want to only see two-handed maces and nothing else, and you only want to see armor bases instead of just evasion bases, ES bases, or evasions with energy shield, all of it can be filtered out if you like in that specific way. It just takes a little bit of finesse and knowing how to turn on, turn off, and navigate the filter that I made. Didn't make it too complicated. But first, I want to go over the kind of the basics. And let's start with the most basic of basics. You basically want to go to Notepad++. You will see something like this. You're going to go to the download section and download Notepad++ version, whichever is the latest version. At the top, stable auto update triggered. You click on it and basically just click download, and then you just download it wherever you'd like. You double click it, you install the file, and you are good to go. All that's going to actually do for you is let you see the files themselves of the filter. How you access this folder though is wherever either you downloaded the filter in, or specifically enough, you would go into your options, you would go into the game tab, and on the top it says right there item filter, and then you have a folder that says right there click to open your filter file folder. You would go there, and all you would do here is that you would do a right click on the filter itself and then edit with Notepad. I already have these up so you can just kind of see everything here. I'm going to go a little bit up and basically explain a little bit of how kind of filters work. I'm not going to go too in depth, just kind of explain a few of the things. Now, excuse me for explaining this in such a layman fashion. I do understand that there is naming parameters for all of this stuff, and I am just going to explain it as simply as possible so that people can just kind of read this and understand what they're looking at. They're not just looking at mumbo jumbo. I see stone greaves. That's the only thing I remember. Yeah, those dropped in the Act 3. Yeah. I get that. What the hell is the rest? I want people to actually understand what they're looking at in case they decide to actually change it in one way or another. Or at least whenever they enter this, they kind of understand what they're looking at. Starting off with the fact that this whole thing is called a parameter. In a sense, it's basically just a set of parameters that you're trying to change for the game, and all you're doing is giving the game conditions as to how you want to see an item within the game, with the few changes that we can actually do within the game. We can change the font size, the color of the text, we can change the border, and we can change the color of the background that the item is showing, basically. Quite literally just the text and the background. That's all it really is. How you read this is that since this is a parameter starts wherever you write show. And it ends whenever the next show is written. If I, for example, remove this, then all of a sudden this whole thing is now part of this. That's basically it. It's just part of it. It's going to be kind of wonky though. It's probably going to give you errors, or if it says the filter was successful, it's going to freak out and go from top to bottom when it comes down to the actual conditions themselves. That's literally it. At least that's how I felt like it was actually working. Sorry, again. There's a few things that probably skip my mind that I actually don't know. But in that case, you just got to make sure that there's always a show that is written right at the end where you are done with your filter. Well, more like your filtering of your parameter. How you actually read them, though, is something like this. So now that this is kind of neatly separated, I wanted to speak specifically how you would kind of read all of this stuff. First off, you got the conditions, then you got the operators, and the literal categories of things you can change for the conditions themselves. For example, rarity, we know that there's only 4 types of rarity, which is normal, magic, rare, and unique. You can only change those 4 conditions within the actual condition of rarity. Those are the only categories in a sense. We know that sockets and Path of Exile can go all the way up to 5. Potentially 6 if I'm not mistaken. I haven't quite seen an item with 6 sockets. I mean, outside of Tabula Rasa, but that's about it. So we know that items can go up to a maximum of 6 sockets. So you would actually put a category from 0 to 6. we know that corrupted items can only be either false or true, as in they can either only be corrupted or they cannot be corrupted. Very simple things. The idea of this is that the categories that you can change within the game and all the names and all the name of the items and all this other stuff is kind of the tricky part of all of this. You got to be able to know what you're actually editing, and that either just comes with experience or it comes with time as you play more and you understand what you're looking at. The conditions, however, is the first thing and the first word that you're going to be adding to a literal condition. So let's say something as simple as, let's say that we just delete all of this and we don't really need these conditions and we kind of don't really need this. And all we're trying to do is just make sure that a rare item or less is those colors. Very simple. The operators work in a very simple way, which is less than, equal, more than. And you can combine them in certain ways, which right now is probably in the screen. I'm just showing it to you. And you would just write it right after the actual condition itself. So the condition would be rarity. Let's say that we want to say less than or equal to the rarity. And that means that all in this thing, all it's doing is that all rare items with rarity of normal, magic, rare are being affected. So let's get rid of this because we just did that. And I actually forgot to set font size, so let me just add that. Font size, there we go. These are the conditions that we actually want to put into the literal item itself, as in the type of changes that we can make within the condition. How you do it is very simple. For the majority is just one space and then just write the actual number or the conditions that you can do. In this case, again, just super simple. Set font size can only be changed upwards of 45, as in the size of the wording within the item can only go as max as 45. So if you want to put 45 max, then do it. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on how big or how small you want the text in the item. This also affects the size of the box as well. Keep that in mind. And then set text color, set border color, and set background color. All it means is that you have to put an RGB, just not a color, but rather an RGB code that represents a color in general. Let's say that we want white color. White color is 255, 255, 255, and the last number is the contrast. How strong is the color for this condition? We want specifically the border of the item to be red. So this is basically the same thing. For the background color, all we're really doing is we're just trying to make it black, and that's about it. Just a dark background, we're done. And that's it. That's the filter. That's literally the filter. Now that if I put this into a filter and I save it with a new one name, all it's literally going to do is just change how the item, how all rares and normals and magic look, and it's going to all change them all like that. All I'm trying to do with this is just kind of give a very somewhat brief tutorial as to how items should be read within a filter. That's it. Let's actually get into the literal tutorial as to how to edit the filter that I made to your needs and wants. You basically have a set of table of contents all the way to the top. Let's say that you, as I said before, you're just a monk that only wants to use armor bases but wants to hide all the other type of bases. So you would just go to the actual specific bases. In this case, evasion bases is 2001. And you would just go down the list and just hide the specific thing. The hashtag that I added here is just basically a comment that I added that titles the actual parameter itself. So if you see, for example, evasion expert rare bodies, that just means that this is a parameter for evasion expert rare bodies. That's literally it. If you don't want to see those, you just write hide. But let's say you do want to see helmets for some reason. I don't know. Maybe helmets, rare expert helmets are popping off and they're expensive. That's all you got to do. You just turn on and off whether or not you want to see and hide an item, and just keep going down the list. I wrote this as neatly as I could, and every single parameter has a title, so you can just kind of very easily see it. I put big sections where it titles what those parameters do, what they're doing. For example, in this case, this is the section for evasion bases right here, right? This section is for advanced rank items, as in items that are not of non-advanced expert or items that are expert. It's only advanced, and the rarity from top to bottom is just rare, magic, normal. That's it. It's not very complicated. You just go down the list, hide, and do everything you want with the filter. That's all you gotta do. Yeah, but hopefully this helps. If you really need like a very specific experience with the game, that you can do so with this. It's not very complicated. Hopefully this helps for anybody. Good luck, Exiles, honestly. Good luck, because anybody seen some items?